Imagine you're playing for the first time. Just got your shiny new Switch 2, just transferred files over from your original Switch, booted up Mario Kart World, marveled at the title screen, and decided to play a Grand Prix to break in the new game. You open up the cup menu, see the 4 tracks of the Mushroom Cup, and that bottom right one looks weird. DK Spaceport? Donkey Kong's had plenty of tracks in Mario Kart, but they've always been jungles or snowy mountains. The big guy isn't much for technology or space travel. Well, aside from a few one-off trips. And is that a DK robot? What's going on here? But then the cup preview hits, the camera pans over each leg of the contest in sequence, and the camera shot of the spaceport and the accompanying musical tease make it clear exactly what the devs are up to. But you'll have to wait a while longer to check it out yourself. 3 races later, you find yourself departing Whistle Stop Summit, crossing the rugged canyon terrain as the sun sets and night falls. Leaping off the uneven roads at the biome's edge, you reach the greener pastures of the southern coast, and there it is on the horizon. Driving onward, you follow the roads, dodging traffic and trying not to rage over falling back 5 spots because of another blue shell, and you pass a checkpoint, signifying you're going somewhere important. Maybe civilian drivers have to put in a quarter to go through. One long curve later, the Space Center is dead ahead, the path clearly resembling that iconic layout even from this far away. And as you close in on the starting line, a gathering crowd on both sides cheering you on, you realize it's all come down to this, your first true test of everything you've learned so far. But how did the developers pull all of this off? This culmination of the first cup that blends modern and old school in such a cool way that it's quickly become a fan favorite. Let's find out as we delve deeper into the design of DK Spaceport. Look, I know it's easy to say they made the place look like the first level of the DK arcade game, but pulling that off is no easy feat, especially the way they've blended it so seamlessly into the structure and themes of this place. Even from the get-go, we have an optical illusion going on. Viewing the path up the spaceport from head-on makes it a dead ringer for the layout of 25M thanks to clever use of perspective. The track's guardrails extend downward to take the shape of the red girders when viewed from the side. The pathways look like they're stacked on top each other, even though each layer is actually further back than the ones before them, and the support pillars are decorated to look just like the original ladders, and when viewed at this angle, they look like they're in roughly the same positions. And the aesthetic still hits home even at street level. The track is littered with little nods to the arcade game. Ramps in several spots feature the original DK's grinning mug. The turns between each section are dotted with burning oil drums and nearby fire snakes filling in for the original fire enemies, and some of the inner walls are decorated in updated versions of sprites from the game. Notice how they're made out of neon lights, you know, the kind associated with arcades back in their heyday. Even the kart decals you can unlock in and around the area take on that classic 8-bit style. When all the other decals look sleeker and more modern, this patch really stands out. Everyone knows the arcade game, but that's not the only Donkey Kong this track borrowed from. The Game & Watch version got a few nods here as well. The device's color scheme is where the devs got the bright orange that features so heavily alongside the blue and dark red. But that pales in comparison to the Spaceport's signature rocket. This baby's decked out in the exact same color scheme and details as the Game & Watch game. The thrusters feature the design of a directional pad and jump button. The former's a big deal. The DK Game & Watch was the first ever video game to have a D-pad. The sign above the finish line even draws directly from the game's LCD graphics. And just past it are more neon lights in the shape of another D-pad and jump button. And high score up top, since your run just ended. All of these shout-outs to Donkey Kong's origins are blended in with their surroundings, structures that feel like they're intentionally trying to feel very 1980s. You can see the blocky design, the emphasis on angles and corners, and the heavy use of gray alongside the otherwise vibrant color palette. You know, like what people thought space-age tech would look like 40 to 50 years ago, while simultaneously making all of these structures feel like they're built almost out of hard plastic. You know, like so many video game consoles, cartridges, and electronics in general in the 80s. But this place isn't just a time capsule. There are signs of the modern day if you know where to look. You can spot remote-controlled drones in several locations during the race, some holding up signs, others using cameras to broadcast the racers going by. MKTV is sparing no expense for the viewers at home, huh? and there are advertisements plastered all over the place, including etched into the track itself. This is a major sporting event in-universe, and not even the Mushroom Kingdom is free from intrusive corporate sponsorships. Though most of the ads here are actually for DK Boosters, which seems to be the company operating the Space Center itself. Their logo and color scheme feature prominently on all the buildings in the area. Even the music captures the way this place uses the past to create something new and modern that still honors the source material. You know, the background music that's played for this entire section of the video. The mad geniuses of the Mario Kart band took that repetitive melody from the original arcade game, turned it into a bass line and chord progression, and wrote out a big band arrangement so catchy it'll get stuck in your head all week. Gotta say, as someone who played saxophone all the way into college and was in multiple school bands, I really like how jazz fusion has become Mario Kart's signature musical style. World has expanded into other genres, but that core is still there, and DK Spaceport's theme plays it loud. Makes me wish I still had a sax to play so I could learn the melody from this. Where was I? Alright, we have a race going on. Reaching the starting line, the track proper opens with a couple simple bumps you can trick off of, then the path quickly splits down the middle and curves off to the left. Mario Kart World loves its path splits, probably a way to thin out the crowd so there isn't 24 people clogging the exact same space all the time. The upper path takes a wider turn and lacks an outer guardrail, but ends with a trick opportunity the lower path doesn't get. Which one is faster? Considering the item box is right at the shift, probably whichever one has less traffic. The paths reconverge into a gliding section that gives a close-up shot of the full structure you're about to climb, and Robo DK kickstarts the track's narrative by making his first appearance since the Cup preview, bellowing at the racers and leaping away to the top. Based on a sign placed elsewhere on the track, this King Kong-sized mechanical doppelganger normally protects the place. Not sure from what, maybe kart racing hooligans? But for this race, he's playing the role of antagonist. And while there's no damsel in distress or other cliches like that, he is in between you and the checkered flag. You have your objective. Get to the top and show that big metal ape who the real boss is. This section also briefly tests how well the player has figured out how to glide. The two floating platforms provide trick opportunities if you can steer toward them. The second one moves back and forth, so it's harder to reach, but land on both and you'll get a little extra speed. Another curve and a jump drops you onto the actual path winding up to the rocket, leading into the first of many hairpin turns. We've already mentioned the oil drums and fire snakes, but they're here for more than just making a reference. The way the enemies jump around provides a moving obstacle that makes nearby racers adjust their drifts on the fly to avoid them. And these turns are just long enough that you can build up an Ultra Mini Turbo. Players will likely know about them already thanks to that long turn on Mario Bros. Circuit, and this helps them understand roughly how far they have to drift to get one. Meanwhile, the oil drums sit on a patch of rough terrain inside the turn. You can use a mushroom, Starman, or etc. to cut the corner here and save extra time. Not only do these turns add more atmosphere, they ensure there are places worth using these items even on a track comprised mostly of straight lines on a suspended roadway. Speaking of straightaways, we've reached the first major one, and the first of several challenges DK Spaceport puts its racers through. It's a Donkey Kong homage, so naturally we have giant barrels to avoid, getting shot out of cannons hovering over the end of the section. You can look ahead and drive around them, or if you stick to the center, some half-hidden springs with not-so-hidden DK emblems will spring you over them, complete with an updated version of the sound that plays when Mario leaps over an enemy in the original game. If you figured out how the springs work by the end, there's a raised platform to land on with some extra coins. Each one might only raise your top speed a little, but in the final race of the Cup, every bit of pocket change counts. More item boxes, and another turn later, we have a more complicated challenge. Now the path is uneven, and the barrels are more numerous and coming from the sides. These bright blue ramps naturally draw your eye as you approach them, and for good reason. Driving up them lets you trick off the top, but this also puts you closer to the cannons the barrels are spawning from, giving you less time to react. Put your hand-eye coordination to work though, and you'll be rewarded with a burst of speed every time you land. But you could also play it safe and stick to the outside of the ramps, where you have more time to watch the barrels and get a feel for the openings. The third ramp spans the entire length of the track, so you'll have to prove you can do it at least once. At least you can stick to the right side and have more time to respond if you're not feeling as confident. If you think this is a lot to keep track of, try the P-Switch challenge that has you drive through the place in reverse. That version adds lines of sidesteppers to this section, which doubles as a nod to another famous Nintendo arcade game from the 1980s. Rounding the next turn, you might be settling in, feeling like you have a rhythm going. But then you might spot the rocket off in the distance and wonder something. Are those pathways down there? Can I go there? For the first time in Mario Kart history, okay, technically the second, yes you can! It's so simple, right? Being able to go into free roam and just cruise around for a while. The ability to drive in the space around the racetracks means we can see more details up close than ever before. And freely exploring DK Spaceport turns up even more cool stuff. During the Mushroom Cup, you're diverted onto the raised road leading onto the track itself, but free roam lets you stay at street level and head straight on. More entry gates here section off the ground floor of the central structure. On the front of the gates are posters showing a history of the rockets DK boosters as manufactured. Hey, there's the rocket barrel from Donkey Kong Country Returns in Tropical Freeze. Entering past the gates, the road travels in a rectangle around the launch pad area, giving drivers a look up close and personal at just how gigantic the rocket is. So huge that they needed an entire awning on the right to store a backup thruster. The inner walls up there have a cool circuitry pattern. Willing to bet that's a dead ringer for the inside of the Donkey Kong arcade or Game & Watch machines. To the far left and right, there are giant freight elevators. In universe, they're for lifting cargo and anything else Kong-sized up to the launch pad. Gameplay-wise, it's the easiest way to get up to the higher levels here, and the slowest. Bordering most of the area are quarter pipes to trick off of in a way that I swear was inspired by the Tony Hawk games, especially the oil rig in American Wasteland. And there are 3 exits down here, one of which is used in the routes to Peach Stadium and Koopa Troopa Beach. But since they're all ocean routes, the only way civilian vehicles are leaving is the way they came in. If this space down here feels familiar, it's because you speed through it during the Cherry Rally. You know, at the end of that route from Koopa Beach that's so memorable because of how short it is, which is also the only time you get to hear DK Spaceport's main music theme in full without it getting interrupted by the Section 2 variant after 30 seconds. Taking the stairs, or the aforementioned elevators, or a conveniently placed rail, leads up to the launch pad and multiple service decks surrounding the rocket. Keeping an eye out on your way up can net you a couple secrets. If you want to get all the way up though, you'll have to make your own way, either by hopping in one of the barrel cannons nearby. Yes, they snuck in a nod to Donkey Kong Country even if this place is inspired by the games before it, or you can spring up these platforms in the back, which are also involved in a P-switch challenge. Funny how the track that goes in a linear path is surrounded by so many ways to get around, isn't it? Look carefully, and you can even find a way to launch yourself up to the nose of the rocket, where a question mark panel is waiting for you. But the grounds before the actual track are also worth checking out. These lines of fences and pipes are great for practicing advanced techniques. There's a Peach medallion up for grabs if you can master grinding and jumping between the fences. You'll also find a couple P-switches back here, and some coins hidden around the outside of the DK Boosters warehouses. Even as disconnected as this area is, there are still rewards for exploring it. Last but not least, we have this artificial island near the starting line that you can go to at ground level in free roam. This warehouse is split off from the rest and seems to have some offices connected to it. Is this mission control? Whatever it's for, there must be a lot of employees here because Yoshi's Diner is able to keep a restaurant operational just from serving them. There are a few food trucks elsewhere in the area, but this is a full building. And wouldn't you know it, the dash food available here is all DK themed. A fancy looking fruit salad, a tropical flan and banana dessert, and a refreshing drink. Maybe a banana smoothie, all served with barrel-themed cookware. This place may be high-tech, but you can't take the jungle out of the Kong. Also, ducking into a nearby pipe launches you out of the satellite dish and onto the roof. Not sure how that works, but it nets you another panel and a boosted jump back onto the main track. Speaking of back on track, don't we have a race to get back to? Alright, you know the new mechanics Mario Kart World introduced? Rail grinding, wall riding, and all the new pathways you can make with them? Up to this point, the Mushroom Cup has teased players with the possibilities. Mario Bros. Circuit lets you test rail grinding in a couple spots, Crown City forces a short grind at one point, Whistle Stop Summit lets you experiment with grinding long distances to build up huge boosts. But the second half of DK Spaceport? This is where the game really pushes you to discover what this game lets you do. Section 4 splits the path vertically, with rails up above and a regular track down below. As most players have realized at this point, rail grinding charges mini turbos, and it looks cool, so you're actively incentivized to challenge yourself and line up with one of the rails. But they end pretty abruptly, so you'll have to do something or risk losing your momentum, and the next segment straight ahead is too far away to jump forward to it. But maybe if you try jumping to the side, hey! Can we talk about this bit of design here? Players know rail grinding is a thing by this point, but more casual players might not have figured out you can jump sideways off them, much less do that to land on a different rail and keep going. But by putting them in a situation where attempting exactly that is the clearest path forward, it naturally encourages them to try it without having to stop and explain it. That moment of, wait, can I do that? I can! Feels super empowering to someone just getting the hang of the game. And if you mess up, no serious harm done. Since all you do is fall down to the track below, which you can see is there the whole time, you can clearly tell the only punishment for messing up is a slower route and more item chaos. And hey, those big ramps on the lower path are positioned so you can trick off them and land right on another rail if you line up with DK's face, giving you multiple attempts without losing any forward progress. This section might even set a light bulb off for the next time you play this track. Hey, if I could grind there, what about the guardrails along the sides of the... Hey, look at that! How did the devs cram this many alternate routes into a bunch of straight lines and hairpin turns? Is taking the side rails faster than the other options? Jury's out so far. Game's been out less than a month and we're still figuring this stuff out. Got all of that? Hopefully, because Section 5 does the same thing with another technique. The roadway splits into two, see they're doing it again, separated by a central wall, and the guardrails extend to become massively tall fences. And this jump at the start practically beckons you to, hey! This part here is a lot of players' first real chance to wall ride for more than a short distance, and the layout makes it as easy as possible to pull this off so you can get a feel for how it works. You might even think to combine it with what you just learned about jumping between rails, and what do you know? You can leap to a different wall if there's one close enough by. But this mechanic is trickier than rail grinding and has less intuitive limits. If something goes wrong and you fall though, you're just back on the main path again. Like with Section 4, if you screw up doing the trickier thing, you're not punished much. This is just the Mushroom Cup. But even the Mushroom Cup can have a climactic final stretch. One more turn as the music ramps up and your final test comes into view as Robo DK reasserts his presence and does what DK does best. Back in Sections 2 and 3, the barrels were fired onto the track in linear paths and predictable patterns. Now you have a giant robotic gorilla throwing them toward you, and their slight diagonal trajectory makes them rock back and forth and ricochet off the walls. And with no springs to vault over the barrels this time, your only choice is to evade to the side if you don't want to get hit and fall behind right at the end. But you've made it too far to give up now, so keep going, let the jazz remix of the Hammer fanfare fire you up, and trick off the smaller jumps in the center for extra speed boosts as you weave between the barrels. And before you know it, you're past Robo DK, into the rocket, and through the finish line. Whew, that was a rush. Let's run through that again real fast. An early tease at the start of the Mushroom Cup revealed that an unlikely theme for a DK track was setting itself up as a giant homage to the arcade Donkey Kong. The route leading to the spaceport builds up its importance as the Cup's final challenge. The opening section establishes the tone and narrative the track will follow, and each section after, as you ascend toward the rocket, presents one test or another that must be overcome, whether obstacles to avoid or new techniques to discover and execute. These urge players to keep improving without punishing them too hard if they fail. All while they take in the sights of one giant love letter to DK's origins merged into the design of a space center, and set to a grooving soundtrack that takes a few repeating beeps and boops, and, just like the entire track itself, goes way harder with this simple idea than anyone could have ever expected. And exploring the place in free roam reveals some surprising pieces of world building, especially by Mario standards, along with plenty of secrets to find and missions to complete. No wonder it's become a fan favorite right out of the gate. Hey, if you've played Mario Kart World, what do you think about this one? Is DK Spaceport one of your early favorites as well? Even if not, I hope this design delve helped highlight what it accomplishes. But it's far from the only track in the game to impress the crowd so far. Are there any others you'd want to see me give a rundown for? Or any other levels from other recent games? Doesn't have to just be Mario Kart. Special thanks to the following for contributing to this video. Thanks as well to my patrons for supporting me all this way. And there are extra perks if you want to join their ranks next. And hey, if you're new to the channel, check out everything else I've created. There are a lot of analysis and theory crafting videos like this one, especially about Smash Brothers. So, until next time, that music's gonna be stuck in my head for another week.